The lawyer's office smelled like leather and broken promises. Maya sat across from me, her manicured fingers drumming against the mahogany table like she was keeping time to a song only she could hear. She wore that cream-colored blazer I'd seen her post on Instagram last week, the one that cost more than my monthly car payment. Her engagement ring caught the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, throwing tiny rainbows across the loan documents spread between us. "It's just a formality, Sophie," she said, sliding the papers toward me with the kind of casual confidence that comes from never being told no. "You know I'm good for it. I've always been good for it." The loan documents sat there like a loaded gun. $200,000. My credit score. My name. My financial future balanced on her promises, which had a track record shorter than her attention span. Mom shifted in her chair behind Maya, that leather creaking in the quiet room. She had that look, the one she'd perfected over the years whenever Maya needed something. Encouraging, expectant, like my signature was just another family tradition, as inevitable as Christmas dinner or birthday cards. "Family helps family, sweetheart," Mom said, her voice carrying that particular blend of guilt and affection she'd weaponized since we were children. "You've always been so responsible with money, so careful." Maya could really use that stability right now. Responsible, careful, stable. The holy trinity of words they used to describe me when they needed something. Never ambitious, never deserving, never worth celebrating, just useful. I stared at the signature line, that thin black line that might as well have been a cliff's edge. My name would go there, binding me to 30 years of Maya's promises. My name is Sophie. I'm 34, and I finally understood what silence could do. I'd been Maya's financial safety net since I was 16 years old. It started small, the way these things always do. $20 here, $50 there. Gas money when she'd spent her allowance on clothes. Lunch money when she'd forgotten hers at home. Again. Mom and Dad called it sisters looking out for each other. But even then, I noticed it only went one direction. By high school, Maya had perfected the art of the crisis. The chemistry textbook she had to have, or she'd fail the class. The prom dress that was on sale but only today. The senior trip deposit that was due tomorrow, or I'll lose my spot. Each emergency came with tears, promises, and Mom's gentle encouragement for me to help your sister out. I worked 3 jobs through college while Maya got a trust fund I didn't know existed. I waited tables at Romano's, tutored freshman math, and did data entry for a local insurance company. Maya got to focus on her studies and enjoy the college experience. When I asked why I couldn't get help with tuition, Dad explained that I was more mature and better with money. What he meant was that Maya would blow through financial aid in a semester, so it was safer to invest in my responsibility than her potential. After graduation, the pattern escalated. Maya crashed Dad's Lexus during her junior year, too many drinks at a sorority formal, a telephone pole that came out of nowhere. The insurance deductible was $3,000. Maya cried for 2 days straight until I offered to cover it with my savings. Mom hugged me and said I was such a good sister. Maya promised to pay me back within 6 months. That was 8 years ago. The debt had been absorbed into the general category of family help, that mysterious accounting system where my contributions were expected and her repayments were optional. When Maya needed a co-signer for her first apartment in Boston, my credit score made it possible. When she wanted to start that boutique in Cambridge, I worked 60-hour weeks for 4 months to loan her $15,000. When the boutique failed and she pivoted to a coffee shop, then a yoga studio, then something involving crystals and energy healing, each venture came with another request for family investment. "Sophie's so generous," Mom would tell her bridge club friends, like generosity was something I'd chosen rather than something that had been expected of me since childhood. "She never hesitates to help family, never even asks what it's for. Never asks because asking implied I had a choice. And in the ecosystem of our family, my choice had been decided long before I was old enough to understand what was being chosen for me. The coffee shop lasted 7 months. The yoga studio, 4. The crystal healing thing never even opened, though Maya kept the inventory in my garage for 2 years, just in case the market improved. I charged her nothing for storage, of course. Good sisters don't charge family for help. Now she was engaged to Derek, a finance guy with a McMansion in Brookline and a portfolio that probably cost more than my annual salary. But somehow, Maya still needed my signature to buy their dream house. Not Derek's signature, with his Wall Street connections and trust fund family. Mine, the responsible sister, the one who always said yes. I watched Maya scroll through Pinterest while the lawyer explained the mortgage terms. She was looking at furniture for rooms in a house she couldn't afford without my credit backing her up, not listening to the legal obligations being outlined in clinical detail. Why should she listen? She knew I'd sign. I always signed. It was what I did, who I was, how I fit into the family structure that had been built around her needs and my compliance. The absence of doubt in her scrolling finger should have been my first warning, but I was still thinking like the sister who always said yes. "Do you remember when you bought your place?" Maya asked, looking up from her phone with that smile she used when she wanted something. Sweet, nostalgic, calculated. Mom and Dad were so proud. Our Sophie, always landing on her feet. So independent. I remembered it differently. I remembered house hunting alone because Maya was in Tuscany for her quarter-life crisis trip, 3 months in Italy to find herself, funded by a mysterious family loan I wasn't offered. I remembered the real estate agent Jennifer asking week after week if my husband was coming to the next showing, then adjusting her assumption to boyfriend, then finally accepting that I was navigating this milestone solo. I remembered the inspection day when Derek's dad showed up to check out Maya's potential investment property, while my parents were helping Aunt Carol move to her retirement community. I remembered signing papers in a lawyer's office that smelled like old books and loneliness, with only my signature required and no family celebration afterward. "Your sister needs more support right now," Mom had explained when I asked why they couldn't help me move. Maya was planning her engagement to Derek, her second engagement, after the first one imploded when she caught her fiancé with her maid of honor. Marriage is such a big transition. She's so emotional about everything. Maya's emotions always took priority. Her heartbreaks required family mobilization. Her victories needed elaborate celebrations. Her failures demanded collective problem-solving. My milestones were acknowledged with a phone call and a "good for you, honey," before the conversation shifted back to Maya's latest drama. The lawyer cleared his throat, pulling my attention back to the present. The monthly payments on this mortgage would be approximately $3,800, with property taxes and insurance bringing the total obligation to roughly $4,500 monthly. $4,500. More than I made in a month after taxes. But Maya was already waving her hand dismissively. "Sophie can handle it," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand with those perfectly manicured fingers. She's always been the stable one, the smart one with money. Stable, smart, responsible. The 3 adjectives that meant I existed to solve problems rather than have dreams. Maya got to be artistic, spontaneous, passionate. I got to be useful. Mom leaned forward from her chair, her voice carrying that tone of gentle encouragement that had trained me to comply since childhood. "You know how proud we are of both our girls. Maya with her creativity and ambition, and Sophie with her practical nature. Practical. Even my mother couldn't dress up my role in the family with prettier words. I was the practical one, the problem solver, the ATM with emotions." I looked around that lawyer's office, the diplomas on the wall, the law books lined up like soldiers, the view of Boston Harbor through those expensive windows, and realized this was probably the fanciest room Maya had ever asked me to give up my future in. Usually her request came via text or over coffee, casual and quick like she was asking to borrow a sweater. But this felt different, bigger, more permanent. This wasn't a few $1,000s or a temporary co-signing arrangement. This was a house, a mortgage that would follow me for 30 years, through job changes and market crashes and whatever other financial storms might come. Derek shifted in his chair, checking his Rolex. He had somewhere else to be, somewhere more important than his future sister-in-law's financial evaluation. Maya noticed and shot him a look, then turned back to me with renewed urgency. "Sophie, you know this house is perfect for us. It's our dream home. And with Derek's promotion coming up, we'll be able to take over the payments within a year. Maybe sooner. Perfect for them. Their dream, their future, my signature." The pattern was so familiar I almost missed how wrong it felt. If you believe silence can speak louder than words, subscribe to Revenge with Susie. It helps me reach more people and keeps me going to bring you more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, would you have done anything differently? The papers felt heavier than they should have. Legal weight, I supposed. The kind that accumulates compound interest on your soul, year after year, payment after payment, until you forget what you wanted before you became someone else's solution. "I need some time to think about this," I heard myself say. The room went quiet in that particular way that happens when someone breaks an unspoken rule. Maya's head snapped up from her phone. Mom's encouraging smile flickered. Even the lawyer looked uncomfortable, like he'd witnessed something private breaking apart in real time. "Think about what?" Maya's voice had gone sharp, losing that honey-sweet tone she'd been using all afternoon. Sophie, this is family. This is important. Important. That magic word that had unlocked my wallet, my time, my peace of mind for 2 decades. Maya's needs were always important. Her dreams, her emergencies, her mistakes, all elevated to crisis level, all requiring immediate family intervention, all somehow becoming my responsibility to resolve. The mortgage is a big commitment, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. I need to review my finances, talk to my own advisor. Maya blinked like I'd spoken in a foreign language. In her world, Sophie didn't need time to think. Sophie didn't have advisors to consult. Sophie just said yes and figured out the details later. Review your finances? She laughed, but it came out hollow. Come on. You've been saving money since you were 12. You're probably the only person our age who actually has a retirement fund. She wasn't wrong. While Maya had been finding herself through various career pivots and European adventures, I'd been maxing out my 401k, building an emergency fund, paying off my student loans ahead of schedule, being responsible, being practical, being the sister who could be counted on to have her financial house in order when Maya's inevitably collapsed. Mom stood up from her chair, moving closer to the table with that particular energy she got when she sensed resistance to Maya's plans. Sophie, sweetheart, I know this seems like a lot, but family is forever. Houses can be sold, credit scores can be rebuilt, but we only get one chance to help each other. Credit scores can be rebuilt. As if destroying mine was just a minor inconvenience, a temporary setback in service of Maya's happiness. As if my financial future was somehow less permanent, less important, less worth protecting than her immediate gratification. I just need a few days, I said, standing up, to run the numbers. Make sure I can actually afford this if something goes wrong. Nothing's going to go wrong, Maya said, but her voice had taken on that edge of panic she got when people didn't respond to her the way she expected. Derek's getting promoted. I'm starting that consulting business. We've got multiple income streams planned. Planned. Like her boutique had been planned. Like her coffee shop and yoga studio and crystal healing certification had been planned. Maya was excellent at planning ventures and terrible at sustaining them, but somehow I was always the one left holding the financial wreckage. Derek finally looked up from his phone, checking the time again. Maybe we should reschedule. I've got a conference call in 20 minutes. No, Maya said quickly. Sophie just needs a minute. She's being cautious. It's what she does. Cautious. Another word from the Sophie lexicon of diminishing adjectives. Never wise, never smart, never strategic. Just cautious. Like a scared animal afraid of its own shadow. I'm going to need more than a minute, I said, picking up my purse. I'll call you tomorrow. I left them in that leather-scented room, their shocked silence following me to the elevator. Maya's voice carried into the hallway as the doors closed. She's never done this before. Sophie always... The elevator swallowed the rest of her sentence, leaving me alone with the quiet hum of machinery and the strange sensation of having said no to Maya for the first time in my adult life. It felt terrifying and powerfully, mysteriously quiet. The text started before I got home. Maya first, then Mom, then Derek, then Aunt Carol, then Maya's college roommate Jessica, who I hadn't heard from in 3 years. They'd activated the entire family network, plus extended contacts from Maya's personal archive of people who could be mobilized for emotional support. Maya, 4:47 p.m. Sophie, what's gotten into you? This isn't like you at all. You're scaring me. Mom, 4:52 p.m. Your sister called crying. She doesn't understand what changed. We're all a little confused about your reaction today. Derek, 5:15 p.m. Hey Sophie, sorry if I seemed distracted earlier. Work stuff. Maya's really upset. Is there something we can do to fix this? The messages kept coming, each one carefully crafted to make me feel like the problem. Not Maya for asking me to risk my financial future. Not the family for expecting me to solve everyone else's problems. Me for hesitating. Me for needing time. Me for disrupting the established order where Sophie always said yes. Aunt Carol, 5:23. Maya says you're being weird about helping with the house. That's not the Sophie I know. You've always been so family-oriented. Family-oriented. Code for willing to sacrifice herself for everyone else's benefit. I'd been so family-oriented that I'd never had a serious relationship, because I was always too busy bailing Maya out of whatever crisis she'd created. So family-oriented that I'd turn down job opportunities in other cities because Maya might need me. So family-oriented that I'd spent my 20s and early 30s being everyone's backup plan instead of making my own. Jessica, 5:31 p.m. OMG, Maya told me about the house situation. I can't believe you're making her jump through hoops. She's like the sweetest person ever. Is everything okay with you? The sweetest person ever. Jessica had clearly never been Maya's sister. Never watched her lie to Mom about where the dent in the car came from. Never seen her borrow money from my purse without asking. Never been introduced to her friends as my sister the accountant. Like my entire identity could be reduced to my usefulness with numbers. By 7 o'clock, my phone was buzzing every few minutes with variations of the same message. Sophie, what's wrong with you? Sophie, this isn't like you. Sophie, you're hurting Maya. Sophie, we don't understand. None of them asked if maybe, just maybe, it was strange that a 32-year-old woman with a trust fund and a finance boyfriend needed her older sister's credit to buy a house. None of them wondered whether requesting someone else's signature on a 30-year mortgage might be a big ask that deserved more than an afternoon's consideration. The guilt industrial complex was in full operation. The same system that had been running since we were children. Whenever Maya wanted something and encountered resistance. Maya stumbles. Everyone mobilizes. Maya needs. Everyone provides. Maya hurts. Everyone else must be hurting her. I turned off my phone and poured a glass of wine. My apartment was quiet without the constant buzzing of family obligation. Peaceful even. I could hear my neighbor practicing violin upstairs. Something classical and melancholy that seemed appropriate for the moment. For the first time in years, I was alone with my thoughts instead of everyone else's expectations. The absence of their demands felt like breathing again, like stepping out of a crowded room into fresh air. Strange how quiet could feel so loud, how saying no could create more space than saying yes ever had. I looked around my living room, my books on my shelves, my art on my walls, my life arranged exactly the way I wanted it, and realized I'd never noticed how much I liked the silence before. The coffee shop where I met Aunt Carol was one of those aggressively cheerful places with chalkboard menus and baristas who treated latte art like a competitive sport. Carol had chosen it, claiming we needed to talk somewhere comfortable and private. What she meant was somewhere Maya wouldn't think to look for us. Carol had been delegated as the family's diplomatic envoy, the reasonable aunt, the one who could talk sense into me without the emotional baggage of being my mother or sister. She'd arrived early and claimed a corner table, probably rehearsing her talking points while she waited. "Sophie, honey, I know this situation has gotten complicated," she said, stirring sugar into her cappuccino with the kind of careful precision that meant she was nervous. "But I think there might be some misunderstanding about what Maya's asking." I sipped my plain black coffee and waited. Carol had taught high school English for 30 years before retiring, and she approached difficult conversations like they were essay questions that could be solved with the right structure and supporting evidence. "Your sister isn't trying to take advantage of you," she continued. "She's just in a difficult position right now. The timing of everything, the wedding, Derek's promotion, the housing market, it's a lot of pressure for a young couple." Young couple. Maya was 32 and Derek was 35. They were hardly children navigating their first financial decision. But in our family's mythology, Maya would always be the baby sister who needed protection from life's complexities. "I understand it's a big commitment," Carol said, leaning forward with that teacher expression that meant she was building toward her main point. "But it's not like Maya doesn't have options. The trust money isn't available until she's 35, but..." She stopped talking when she saw my face. That particular combination of shock and recognition that happens when a carefully guarded secret gets accidentally revealed. "What trust money?" I asked, my voice quiet in the way it gets when you're trying not to scream. Carol's face went pale. Oh, honey. I assumed you knew." "What? Trust? Money?" The words came out sharp enough to make the couple at the next table look over. Carol glanced around the coffee shop like she was checking for escape routes, then met my eyes with the resigned expression of someone who just walked into a minefield. "Maya has a trust fund," she said quietly. "From your grandmother's estate. It was set up when she turned 18. But the payout isn't until 35. $150,000. $150,000. Maya had a trust fund. Had always had a trust fund. All those years of borrowing from me, all those emergencies that became my debt, all those times Mom and Dad explained they couldn't help her because money was tight. Maya had $150,000 waiting for her birthday. 6 months away. "How long have you known?" I asked Carol. My voice steadied despite the fact that my entire understanding of my family's financial dynamics was reshaping itself in real time. "Since she was 18. But Sophie, your parents thought it was better if she learned to be independent first. If she knew about the money too early, she might not develop good financial habits. Independent. Learning to manage money by spending everyone else's. Developing good habits by never experiencing consequences. Maya had been practicing financial responsibility with my credit score as her training wheels. And me? I heard myself ask. Was there a trust fund for me? Carol's silence was answer enough. She reached across the table to pat my hand, a gesture that felt more like an apology than comfort. Your grandmother felt that Maya might need more guidance, more structure. You were always so self-sufficient even as a child. She knew you'd find your way. Self-sufficient. The consolation prize for being reliable. I'd been financially responsible since I was 16, not because it was noble, but because nobody else was going to catch me if I fell. Maya got a trust fund and a family safety net. I got praised for not needing either. I stood up from the table, leaving my coffee half-finished and my understanding of my family completely overturned. Carol called my name as I walked toward the door, but I didn't turn around. I had planning to do. For the first time in my life, I understood exactly what my silence was worth. I didn't call Maya back. I didn't respond to Mom's increasingly frantic voicemails, each one more dramatic than the last. Sophie, please call me. I don't understand what's happening. This is so unlike you. Unlike me. As if the only version of Sophie they could recognize was the one who solved their problems without question. Instead, I spent the weekend making changes. Quiet changes. Strategic changes. The kind that happen behind the scenes, invisible until they're complete and irreversible. Monday morning, I met with my financial advisor, Tom Brennan. I'd been working with him for 6 years, building the portfolio that Maya thought she understood. Conservative investments, emergency funds, retirement planning, the responsible sister's money, managed responsibly. I need to restructure some things, I told him, sliding a list across his desk. New accounts, different beneficiaries, complete access control. Tom reviewed my request with the kind of professional neutrality that expensive advisors perfect. Move the emergency fund to an account Maya couldn't access. Change the beneficiaries on my retirement accounts from family trust to specific charities. Remove Mom and Maya from any financial documents where they appeared as contacts or decision makers. This is pretty comprehensive, he said, looking up from the paperwork. Everything okay? Just taking more control over my financial future, I said, making sure my assets are protected. He didn't ask protected from whom. Good advisors understand that family and money create complications that don't require explanation. Tuesday, I called Verizon and changed my phone number. The customer service representative asked if I wanted to notify my contacts about the change. I said no. A clean break meant exactly that. Clean. No forwarding information, no transition period, no gradual withdrawal. Just absence where there used to be availability. Wednesday, I updated my emergency contacts at work. Removed Mom and Maya, replaced them with Tom and my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who'd been watering my plants when I traveled and who understood that some families were better at a distance. Thursday, I met with my lawyer to update my will and power of attorney documents. Maya had been listed as my healthcare proxy since we were in our 20s, back when I thought family loyalty meant automatic trust. Now I designated my longtime friend Rachel, who lived in Chicago and who'd never asked me for money. By Friday, I'd systematically removed Maya and my parents from every aspect of my financial life. They couldn't access my accounts, couldn't make decisions on my behalf, couldn't even reach me by phone without going through intermediaries. It felt like witness protection, but voluntary, a kind of emotional relocation program that I'd designed for myself. The weekend was quiet in a way I hadn't experienced in years. No texts requesting emergency loans, no calls about Maya's latest crisis, no family drama requiring my immediate intervention. Just me, my apartment, and the strange peace that comes from being completely unreachable to the people who'd spent decades reaching for you. Saturday afternoon, Maya showed up at my building. I saw her through the security intercom, standing in the lobby with red eyes and that particular expression she got when people didn't respond to her the way she expected. Confused, hurt, angry in a way she couldn't quite justify. "Sophie, please. We need to talk," she said into the intercom speaker. "I don't understand what's happening. This isn't like you." There it was again. This isn't like you. As if the only version of me they could accept was the one who existed for their convenience. As if change was something that happened to other people, not to sisters who'd spent 34 years being taken for granted. "The wedding is in 3 months," she continued, her voice taking on that edge of panic she got when she couldn't control a situation. "I need this house, Sophie. You know I'm good for the money. Good for the money. She had $150,000 coming in 6 months, and she still wanted me to risk my credit for her convenience. Still wanted me to be the backup plan, the safety net, the sister-shaped solution to problems she could solve herself. I looked at her through that small security screen, mascara smudged, designer coat wrinkled from standing in the wind, holding tissues like they were weapons against an unfair world, and felt nothing but tired recognition. This was Maya in crisis mode. The same Maya who'd cried when she crashed Dad's car, when her boutique failed, when her first engagement ended. Always the victim of circumstances, never the author of choices. I didn't buzz her up. I didn't open the door. I didn't explain about the trust fund or call her out on the years of financial manipulation. I just watched her through that screen until she finally left, her footsteps echoing in the lobby like a retreat. The silence that followed felt profound, not empty, but full. Full of space that used to be occupied by other people's emergencies. Full of time that used to be spent solving problems I hadn't created. Full of peace that used to be disrupted by family obligation. I made tea and sat by my window, watching the city move along below. Somewhere out there, Maya was probably calling Mom, calling Aunt Carol, calling anyone who might explain why I'd become unreachable. They'd theorize and strategize and mobilize, the way families do when someone stops playing their assigned role. But up in my apartment, surrounded by my books and my quiet and my own name on everything that mattered, I felt free in a way that had nothing to do with anyone else's understanding. 6 months later, Maya got married without the house. She found another way to finance it. Derek's family connections, probably. Or maybe she'd tapped into that trust fund early with some legal maneuvering. The wedding photos appeared on Facebook, tagged by cousins I rarely talked to. Maya in white lace, Derek in a tailored tux. Both of them smiling in front of a different house in a different neighborhood. I wasn't invited to the wedding. Not that I expected to be after 6 months of silence. But the absence of an invitation still felt significant, like a formal acknowledgement that I'd moved from family member to former family member in whatever mental filing system Maya used to organize her relationships. Mom sent a Christmas card that year instead of calling. The kind of generic holiday greeting you send to distant relatives and old college friends, wishing you peace and happiness in the new year, signed with just her name, not Love Mom. A card that acknowledged my existence without claiming connection. Aunt Carol pretended not to see me at the grocery store. We'd ended up in the same checkout line at Whole Foods, me with my single-person shopping cart, her with enough groceries for a family dinner. She looked right through me like I was furniture, scanning her phone while the cashier bagged her items. It was almost impressive, the precision of her deliberate blindness. Maya blocked me on social media, which saved me the trouble of doing it myself. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all traces of digital connections severed with the efficiency of someone who'd decided that silence was a form of aggression rather than a form of peace. They thought I'd chosen money over family. They were wrong, but I didn't correct their misunderstanding. Let them believe I was greedy, selfish, cold. It was easier than explaining that I'd chosen sanity over obligation, that I'd chosen my own future over their convenience, that I'd chosen silence over the exhausting performance of being perpetually available for other people's emergencies. The house Maya didn't co-sign for sits in a neighborhood I drive through sometimes when I'm visiting clients on the north side. It's nice. Tudor style with a circular driveway and landscaping that probably costs more than my monthly rent. Maya always had excellent taste when she was spending other people's money, or in this case, when she'd finally been forced to spend her own. I wonder sometimes if she ever thinks about that afternoon in the lawyer's office. If she remembers the moment when I said I needed time to think. The crack in the pattern that had been holding our relationship together for 34 years. If she understands that my refusal wasn't about the money, but about finally recognizing my own worth, probably not. Maya has never been good at self-reflection, and admitting that her sister had legitimate reasons for refusing to risk her financial future would require acknowledging that her requests had been unreasonable in the first place. Easier to cast me as the villain in a story where she's always been the victim of other people's selfishness. My apartment is quieter now. No emergency phone calls at midnight. No text message crises that require immediate solutions. No family drama that somehow becomes my responsibility to manage. Just me and my books and my retirement fund, and my name on every document that matters to my future. I sleep better without the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. Dream without the anxiety of wondering what financial emergency will interrupt my peace next. Wake up to days that belong entirely to me, structured around my priorities, funded by my decisions. The silence isn't empty. It's full of space to think about what I want instead of what everyone else needs. full of time to build a life that serves me instead of serving as a solution to other people's problems, full of the particular peace that comes from being invisible by choice rather than by default. I stayed quiet, and eventually they stopped trying to make me speak. The absence of their demands feels like breathing again, like stepping out of a room that had been too small for too long. It's been enough, more than enough. It's been exactly what I needed. And in the quiet of my own life, finally, it's been mine.